Hello, hello again. Welcome back to Him and Her TalkSpace with me, your resident him host, Chad Nails, Master Life Coach, and as always, my fantastic co-host,
Needy Wyndham.
That's right. Now today, y'all, I gave y'all a warning last week. If you were with us last week, I gave y'all a warning, and if you've seen the answer, we're going to try and go deep in here tonight with this subject that has, if you haven't been living under a rock and you're a Black person, you've heard this somewhere along the lines, and that is the case for reparations of the United States to the Black community, to the United States Black community. And there's a reason why I say that specifically, which we'll get into, of course. If you are a Black person whose family has lived in this country for any significant amount of time, then you've heard this argument in some way, shape, or form. And that is the case of us being Black people here in the country, specifically Black people who are the descendants of those who have been enslaved here in the country. And the United States, there being an argument for the United States kind of owing us something for that. So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to, like we always do with TalkSpace, we're going to open it up, we're going to talk about what it is, what it's not, what some of the arguments have been for it. Is it even something that we need to pursue? Is it something that's even possible? And then, of course, your thoughts and feelings on it, of course. So what we have going on here tonight, before I even jump into that, a little bit of new housekeeping. What we are doing now is that we will be recording these sessions. If you wish to remain anonymous, of course, you may keep your cameras off. What happens is, and I just learned this, Nini just shared with us that when we go back and we look at these recordings, at first we were just recording just to, review and see what we can do better and so on and so forth. But we also realized that when people who don't have their camera on talk, it's almost like people are calling in, but they're just looking at Nini and I talking. So going forward, we actually will be sharing these videos going forward as well. This will be shareable content as well for you guys to go back over it and see what it said. If there's somebody who missed it, you be like, hey, bro, sis, I got you. This is what we went over. This is what we talked about. So, and we've had people asking us about it for the last since we've been doing it. So we figured it out. We said that a few months ago. We were going to figure it out, and we finally figured it out. So you want to stay anonymous, but you still want to be a part of it, and you still want to be able to have this shareable. By all means, keep your cameras off. We are still, of course, monitoring the chat and everything, and hands up being raised. We won't even say your names. Really, there's something that there's something that you want to say, and you see that you have your hand up, then we'll just say, hey, I see you with your hand up, caller, come on in, and that's how we'll go with it from there. And I'll probably make this announcement again as more people come in, so that they know. But yeah, so I ain't even going front. When I think about this topic, I get heated. I get a little heated. I get a little perturbed because when I think about the full scope of what's been taken from us, when I think of that notion of for every dollar that a white household has, the Black household only has 10 cents. So we're missing 90% of our stuff on some generational stuff. I take a breath already, but it's a tough one. So we're just gonna, like we normally do, we're just gonna throw out the first question out here, and we're gonna let y'all have at it. We're gonna open up space to it. First question: when it comes to the topic of reparations that we have, what's your stance on it? When you hear the topic of specifically reparations for the Black community, what comes to mind? What are your thoughts on it? What are your feelings on it? You guys, like I said, we're monitoring the chat. We are following you with hands being raised. So Space is open to it. What y'all got?
I can start. Um, what I what comes to my mind when I think of reparations and like all of the hard work that obviously our ancestors put in to build this country. Um, the first thought is it going to happen? I mean, should it happen? Yes. Is it going to happen? Probably not, unfortunately. I went to visit. I know. I went to visit one time a few years ago. I went to visit Savannah, Georgia. Beautiful, 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 beautiful city. On one of their local like tourist streets, I believe it's called Milk Street, which is a downtown tourist area. Literally, I believe it was like 5 miles of cobblestone. And then you see the old architecture buildings and stuff like that. That entire street, however the length of Milk Street is, it has a trolley. It has literally brick by brick laid of cobblestone stones, rather, not bricks, was created by slaves. So Milk Street was created by slaves. They have over on the side, they show where the slaves, because it's right next to the water, where the slaves came off the ship and they were housed in this little, literally looks like a room that they house them, and that's all of that is still there. But it's mind-blowing to see that a 5-mile road that's now tourists that we walk on and give money to, and they have restaurants and hotels and everything there, was built by our ancestors. And it's like, yes, we can argue and we can fight and we can say that we're due reparations, but my thought process is, okay, let's add that to the list of things that we're owed. So not only are we owed equal rights and all these other things that we fight for, let's add that to the list. And how far? Say that again.
Give me my money.
Right, give you your money, but where on that list does that fall? Right, because we're constantly fighting for equal equality. We're constantly fighting for equal pay. We're constantly fighting. So where on that list does that reparations fall into place, and are they going to even pay it? And how do you do that? Like, what does that even look like? So that's just all my thoughts that come out with that question.
I hear you on that. I definitely hear you on that. That's one of those. It's one of those things, and it's tough to not see all types of stuff around you. Right. You're not even just in the South, but up here in the North, because even right. for a lot of stuff that we built, we're still using everywhere, that are a product of free labor, right. That are a product of our free labor. So it is a very far-reaching thing, to consider. Yeah. Anybody else got any thoughts or feelings on when you your knee-jerk reaction when you hear reparations? What do you feel?
I have a can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
This is Tanisha. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. My question is this. I know that a lot of descendants are looking at Ancestry.com and different sites, just trying to find out where their ancestors are and who were their ancestors, if they can prove their ancestors were indeed slaves, or how far back they go. My thing is this: in researching on what I've looked at through Ancestry.com, for my family in particular to see, I've seen that how some of those slaves were even able to get some land. They keep saying they owe us 40 acres and a mule. Who's to say that back then some of these slaves didn't get this? Because it's a thing that's called the Freedmen's Bureau. I was looking up through Ancestry.com that has the list of free slaves. I mean, the slaves that were free, and they were given funds to do stuff. So, but somehow, I guess, during that period of time, African Americans had become, a little liberal, and they started breaking that stuff up. So I'm not sure to say that some descendants of slaves got, you know, funding for being slaves, for their descendants being slaves. But that's a good place that we need to look, because some of these things are hidden. You know what I'm saying? Some is hidden, some is not hidden. But I really think that because the history is so far gone that nobody really could really tell it unless it's written somewhere and somebody gonna pull it up. But I know that the Freedmen's Bureau is a list of slave names up there and their ancestors where they were free and they got funding for something. You know what I'm saying? They gave them money. They gave them things so they could buy land and stuff. So I was looking through that, trying to find some things, from my ancestors. But like I said, some of these ancestors from slaves, they had a lot of land. It's no way a slave can own that much land, I wouldn't think. What would a slave be doing with 100 acres of land? So that's the question. For slaves, children that own that much land, where they get all that from? Them people gave it to them? I don't think so. That's just a question I have in mind. That's it.
Yeah. I think that's good. Thank you for sharing that. And that is, you made a really valid point as far as seeing what actually is on the books, as far as what this is now on a national level, on a federal level. Nothing's really been done, but that's not totally the case. And actually, y'all know me. I'll go and do some research and come back to y'all with this stuff. So there was originally a plan for reparations just after the Civil War, right? That's a fact. Lincoln signed it into he signed it into law. However, we also remember Lincoln also got assassinated. And the following president, Andrew Jackson, who ain't like us no way, he actually rescinded that bill. So that whole 40 acres and a mule thing that we were supposed to have gotten, it was in place, and then it was taken out of place. And then when they tried to bring it back around again, Jackson vetoed it. So it was something. It's not to say that the country wasn't in a spot where they could have done it. But the U.S. being what it is, we know elements within the U.S. being what it is, it got taken away from us, and we haven't been able to get it back since. And that number just keeps going up because now it's not even just slavery that you have to act against. You have to consider legalized, criminalization, where after the Civil War, blacks that didn't have a home were arrested for vagrancy, but we ain't got no home. But now vagrancy is a crime, or loitering is a crime, or panhandling when we're trying to, make ends meet, trying to find day labor. They criminalized us for a lot of things that we had because we didn't have. And so you have that. You have families that can make cases for wrongful murder. When you stop and think about the lynchings that happened after slavery, where they would sit there and make, have barbecues and stuff. Come on, get some ice cold lemonade and juleps and watch us hang old John. On some crazy stuff. So there are a lot of factors that go into it. And not to say that everybody who had land was just cruel and something like that. I can imagine maybe a former slave owner, maybe, some portion of slave or former slave owners maybe wanted to give, feeling bad for what happened, and then wanted to give their former slaves some land and stuff like that. So that's how, on an individual level, I can see how that can happen. But on a federal level, no. There's a very big bill still due to us. And we have to. I think it's still worth figuring out how to. Maybe it doesn't have to be in one shot. Maybe it can be over time. But I think something has to be done because other people have gotten reparations. Fast forward to just after World War II, where we had all the Japanese Americans in those in the internment camps. They got paid for that. They got paid for that inconvenience. So it's not impossible. Does it have to be on a larger scale? Yeah, because there were only maybe some tens of thousands of Japanese Americans, but you had 4 million slaves passing through this country in that span of time. So figure something out. That's all I'm saying.
And then my question too
quick,
is though is how so who is due? Who is due? So if we're talking about people who were in America who helped to develop America, I was actually having a conversation right before this call, one of my friends, and he's like, well, everyone who contributed, slaves who were in Jamaica who cut down sugarcane should also be included in that because they helped to fund America with the sugarcane. So then it comes down to who is owed and how do you figure that out?
Yo, that's not even a crazy point. Okay, my take on it was this, and it's not even a fully fleshed out thing, so don't hold me to it. My take on it was the whole thing was, and this is as recently as last year because they were talking about this during the election cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Putting it into place for there to be a research commission established that would do the back work and do the research and the background checks and so on and so forth, and basically determine any Black Americans whose families can be traced back to the Civil War and prior. Right? So from anything, you can trace the family from the Civil War to any time before the Civil War, they should be eligible. All right. Now, every family member, no. Family members that can be established over 18, yes. All right. That was my take. And then figuring out some basic average number for the price of a slave, and then multiplying that by however many generations it's been determined that your family's been here, right? So they go with $1,200, right? Let's say $1,200, and we go with $1,800. So $1,200 and $1,800. Factor that to what it would be now, which is like 24,000, something like that, and then multiply that number times however many generations your family has been proven to be here. So a person whose family member was sold as a slave in 1800 at that basic price, factoring for inflation and the fact that it's been 11 generations at like 20 years per generation, something like that, they're getting like $275,000. One person gets $275,000. All right, and then multiply that times however many people within the proper demographic hits. I think America could do it. We got money for missiles and whatnot. So
Eric,
that was just my basic thing.
Yeah.
I was
going to say something too. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's not possible. That's one of the reasons why they stopped that back in those times when they supposedly freed the slaves, because they didn't have enough land with that 40 acres and a mule thingy to pay everyone in that manner. That's why they did away with that. Partly that, and as well as Lincoln getting assassinated as well.
Okay.
And it's even more the case today. At the numbers that you're throwing out. So if, say, for instance, 30 million people, and each person gets $150,000, you have to multiply that out by 30 million.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money, and they're not going to come up off of that money. That, and then they don't want to take accountability.
Right.
They still kind of want to brush it up under the rug, as if it didn't happen.
That part.
It's like what I kind of explain to people when I meet them. Like, I look at it like this: you hear a lot of times from people that those times were so far gone, they're back then. You don't know a slave, A, B, C, X, Y, and Z. But then you had people like W.E.B. Du Bois, who passed away in 1960. You know, he was born in 1868. That's not that far, going from today. My grandmother's brother was born in 1895. My great grandfather was born in 1870. My dad met him. My dad knew him. My dad had a relationship with him.
Right.
And he passed away in 1955. Those times are not that far removed, but they want to make it seem as if it is.
That's true. That's true. We don't. You're absolutely right. We don't have to go back that far.
And as far as like with the research and all of those things, they have documentation on everybody and everything. Believe you me.
Yep.
It's not that hard to do. They have it. They have more than what you would think they have. They have it, and they know how many people are descendants and have come from that lineage. They know that already.
Absolutely. I'm gonna tell you why that's so true. Because if there's one thing that this country thrives on, it is keeping accurate records of its the capitalism movement, of how capital moves and whatnot. And you got to remember, we were property, so records were kept, meticulous records.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Manifestos of how many slaves were taken from the motherland, how many made it here, reason, cause of death, height, weight. They measured us like livestock. Who doesn't keep records and stuff like that?
Because we were the capital. Because a lot of people don't realize that in actuality, we came through Wall Street that was built to sell us. That's where we were sold. We were sold to the South. That's how that worked. A lot of people don't really know that.
So wait, we came from north to be sold to south?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Because if you go back and do your history, when you look at the colonies, the first colonies were the colonies in the north.
Yep.
And also the Caribbean, you have to account for them as well, because they were a colony as well. They were just in the Caribbean. They were colonies as well.
True.
Okay. I learned.
Very true. Yeah. Even though they say on paper that Jamestown was the first settlement, the colonies were very well established from down there up through the north.
Yeah.
So that movement is real. They might not have been, the North might not have been. The North has been historically touted as not having slaves, but they had servants. They had, they might not have been treated as bad or as consistently, or maybe not for as long, but it was there. Mm-hmm. It was there. New Jersey had it. New York had it. Massachusetts had it. Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Pennsylvania, they had it. Delaware had it.
I mean, take for instance in New York, I forgot where the area is at, but when they unearthed it, and there were 20,000 graves there.
I think you're referring to Seneca Village, which is where Central Park is.
I'm not sure it was Seneca Village. You may be correct on that one, but I know that it was maybe back.
I'll double check.
15 or 20 years ago, I think it was as recent as that, where they were doing some digging, and they had come across those graves, because what they would do, they would work them during the summer months, and then they would kick them off of the plantation during the winter times. And if you could survive, then you can come back to work again. So it's a lot. It's just a lot.
That's some raw stuff. All the more reason why.
I have. Go
ahead.
No, I don't. I'm not gonna lose what I'm gonna say. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go back to it. Maybe I'll leave my feelings on it.
Okay.
And I'll try to maintain myself. But when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, ain't that more reason why we should get something? Give my money.
But then my thing is, what I was gonna say is, how do you track that? Like, there's absolutely no way that you can track that. There's people who are descendants from, those people. Like, how do you track that? Like, how do you? And they changed the names of slaves when they were sold to other people, and like how do you keep track of that? Like, how can we trust that their records are accurate?
Their records are accurate because, just like Chad was saying, they wrote down when they had slaves and they traded them. Like, they made like they did it often, so they needed to have that documentation to know who was going where. They knew what they were doing. Believe you me, they had their bookwork in order. At the beginning of the week, they might buy two.
I can say this.
At the end they sell 5. That's how they worked it.
Okay.
Yeah.
They had spreadsheets.
They had the census.
Oh, yeah.
And they had the census too. The census has been going on forever and a day. When you look at that Ancestry.com and you go back and look at that census names slaves and names people. I know that but I'm looking at Ancestry.com on mine. When they go back through those census records, it doesn't list the slaves' names until I think 1867. But before that, they were listed as 1, 2, girl 1, girl 2, but they were slaves.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of records. They kept accurate records of these people. I'm telling you. But my comment I was going to make was, in order to, I'm not going to say in order. To me, it seems that the more we know about our history, the more accurate information we know, the better it is for if this ever comes about to be accurate and true, the more we can stand up and say, okay, you got this documentation written somewhere, but I'm so knowledgeable about what is what, that even though I can't physically see these records you got somewhere, I know that this person is this. This is my granddad and he was this. And this is my aunt and she was, these people were born in 1825 or 1865 or 1870. You have to know who your history is, because if you don't know your family, you can't say how you going to track it. Like Nene, you're saying how are they going to track it? We don't need to worry about how they're going to track it. Can you track it?
But the records are coming from based on what they are telling us, though. I see what you're saying, like based on the census and everything else that's in there. But how do we? I understand what you're saying. Trustably, I understand what you're saying. But back then, even when they did the census, are we trusting that the census was done? Or we're saying that we're trusting that everything that they put down in there and wrote down by hand or accounted for was tracked? And of those 200 slaves or bodies that we found 15 years ago, who are they? Where did they come from? Who were they descendants of? Who were their descendants? Like, so how do we track that part of it? Like, there are a lot of them that we can keep track of, that we can track and do the lineage for, but there's 1,000, tens of thousands more that we can't. That's all I'm saying. Not saying that yes, if you go to your census or if you go to the list and say girl A plus girl B was sold to Mr. Johnson and you can track that back. But what about those 200 people or the other ones who were hung for the truth? Like, how do you keep track of everyone who is due reparation? Not everyone is going to get paid.
Oftentimes, a lot of those people that, just like those 20,000 or so grave sites that they found there, that stopped the lineage. That stopped
the lineage?
Yeah, for a lot of those people.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if you're on a plantation and you're there, then you have paperwork on you.
Yeah,
and that can be traced back. They, believe you me, they have that documentation. And like Tanisha was saying, I've seen in my research where over certain amounts of years, they were like, okay, now, just like she was saying with the census, okay, now we have 10 million people in the United States. Okay, now we have 20 million. If they know what date and days they have those amounts of people, believe you me, it can go a little deeper than that as far as accounting for others and having their paperwork in order. They do that, and it was all a profitability thing.
Yeah.
So they're going to have everything in order when it comes to that dime.
Mhm.
You can believe that.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that.
Okay.
That was money. That was business conducted. You're not going to keep loose records of business being conducted. Why? It was lucrative. That's like stock. You got what we call stock now. You got to remember that we were considered stock, like livestock.
Livestock. Yeah.
Right. We're just like how we learned how to buy and sell and do options trading and stuff like that on the stock market. Now there was a point in time where they were like, "Yo, there's white people putting money into this particular, trading company. Why? Because they had a really good record of retaining slaves during the transit. Or money in this transit company because they have a 80%, they have a 95% retention record. But they only lose 5% of the slaves during the transit and stuff like that. So money got made. Money got made hand over fist on this stuff. It wasn't even just what we were growing and picking and stuff like that. It was us. That's some compound stuff. So being able to figure out and finding those records and stuff like that, it ain't even necessarily that you have to find per se. People do it. Skip Gates up there and then I forget what school he's in. I think he teaches at Yale.
Harvard. He was at Harvard.
Yeah, at Harvard. Thank you.
Who?
And he was doing that show. Henry Louis Gates. They call him Skip Gates.
Mhm.
And he did that show on PBS, and he was doing that show on PBS where he would do people's lineages, and a lot of the white people, he was like, "Yo, your great 4 times great grandfather, he was a slave owner. Here are his records. Here's who he sold." Or if it was a black person, hey, this is who you were owned by at one point, and the records are meticulous. Sold such and such, purchased at this day for this amount, height, weight, sold at this point, bore 2 bucks or 2 foals, because remember they call this like animals and stuff like that. Bore two foals in this year, named Jimmy and Petunia, sold at this date to such and such. Then you go to such and such's record, received 2. It moves like bank records. It moves like bank records. So I think that's one of the major pieces of being able to really get that locked in and see, okay, who was where, what, figuring out, okay, such and such was. They even kept death records, whipped until dead, but at this time, caught trying to leave the farm, shot dead. There's a name next to that, so we can see where the line stops with. We can even see where the line stops with some of these things. I think America simply didn't take the time to try and do it, and I think now that people are getting more knowledgeable about how to access that stuff, that ain't nothing but a trip to the Library of Congress. If you're willing to do it.
Yes, that's what I was going to say too. Yes.
It ain't nothing,
they
right,
have a whole lot of that.
record.
They have this stuff as public. You just got to know what name and what county.
You don't even have to do.
You can look that stuff up online too.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not. I don't think when it comes to putting it together, it's not as hard as they're making it sound. But like Eric said, they just don't want to come off that grip for for 2 reasons. One, because that's going to be because that's a major. All right, there's as of 2019, there's 41, just under 42 million black people in the country, not factoring out immigrating black people. Let's cut that number in half and say there's 20. Right? Let's say there's 20 that's descendants. Cut that in half again for those that are under 18. You owe 10 million black people, at minimum, you owe 10 million black people some money. And I don't think that's impossible to do. But like you said, that's a grip. That's still a grip. It's improbable, not impossible. And also, to do that is the ultimate acknowledgement that you fucked up. Pardon my language. That is the ultimate admission that you jacked up. All right, and that is something that America has been trying to avoid since y'all brought the first one over here, and since the first time somebody said that this was wrong. Oh, America's been trying to avoid that, passing that book forever. So to go into that, I think that's an even bigger obstacle than the money part, is the pride aspect. But moving on, just for a hypothetical sake, whether you believe in it or not, whether you believe in Shannon or not, I'm asking for a little bit of hypothetical here. What forms can it take, if possible? What are some ways that it can look like? If let's say God willing, they were able to be like, all right, we're sorry. Here, what can that look like?
I think that, I think that they will never individualize what they, monetary reparations to people of color.
Okay.
But I think that I would like to see it go towards the things that will allow us to heal in our communities. So we talk a lot. A lot of money goes into like our school systems. A lot of money goes into social service agencies. And it seems as if money, even though it goes into those different sectors, it still doesn't help. So I think we really have to identify and be really strategic about how we would like, or what we would like this to look like. We have a lot of mental health issues in our communities. And in all honesty, I'm not a fan of a lot of social service agencies because I feel like they band-aid a lot of issues and they never really rectify so that people are able to fish, as opposed to, if you teach a person how to fish, then they can eat for a lifetime, as opposed to just giving them enough so that they can keep coming back to you for more.
Mm-hmm.
We need whatever it is. We need for the money to go towards what will allow us to be able to know how to fish for ourselves. Mm. I don't know what the answer is, but I have an idea, but that's what I would like for it to look like.
Good.
Okay. I'm feeling that. Anybody else want to chime in on that? What could this look like? What could reparations look like?
I would say exactly what she said. I just think that we have to learn how to move in all areas of what I call people activity. And we have to learn them thoroughly because that's how our nation is run. We don't understand that yet. We still believe that having a lot of money and being able to buy things, and which I say just is a pain reliever. That's not going to get you through. We need to move in all the areas of economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, sex, religion, and war, and health. And we need to learn those thoroughly.
Okay. Is that something that you feel like that could be put together as like a program or something that would be set up for us, or?
That is something that we could come together, because the problem that I see that we have is we're so busy. Again, we do things to gain a status or to relieve pain. We're not doing things to create actual progress. We're just doing things that are superficial, and that's not getting to the root of the issues. And that's why we continue to have issues. We have people, and we have people that are wealthy or whatever, rich, and We spend however many trillions of dollars, but how do those trillions of dollars benefit the community? How does it benefit the nation? It doesn't. Because like we all went over a few weeks ago, when you were talking about the money only generates in the community one time and then it goes out. Yeah, if you have a balloon and it has a hole in it, the water is going to run out. That's how it works. So if the money's not generating within the community, as Malcolm X would say, you creating the ghetto in that manner.
All right. Well, appreciate you sharing that, and you're accurate on that.
I think that honestly, when we sit down and talk about what we think we need to do, we have so many levels of maturity and levels of understanding within the Black community that it's going to be very, very, very hard. Because some people, like you said, they all about the look. They just want the money. They don't know how to spend money. They just, the thought of having it, you know what I'm saying? That's not going to make it better, because you can give a person $1 million. If they don't know how to spend their money, they're going to be broke in a year. You know?
Or less.
Because they're not, unless, you're right. So this is a heavy topic, because for one thing, we don't really know a lot about our history to say period anyway. Then to say that we can get payback for our ancestors being slaves, just the thought of somebody say $, $1. Oh my God, they don't even care. They don't know who they some kin to. They don't even know. And, not speaking bad about Black people, but a lot of Black people with money in the hands of the wrong people, it's not good. Honestly,
we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. So,
I'm sorry. Okay.
No, you're good. You're definitely on the right track. You're definitely going to touch on that. It's
okay.
Oh God, where to start at with that? There was a lot that has to go into play, because I could see hypothetically us getting money like that. There'll be some of us that do right. There'll be some of us that put it into investment funds, that put it into real estate, that put it into things that's going to yield a return. Not that we just we shelled the money out and all we got was just this item or this product. Putting it into rental properties, or being able to establish a fund that Black people can dip into to improve themselves from that kind of standpoint. But I also see a lot that would just be like, I got a new chain, I got the new Jordans, I'm gonna be able to get the new Jordans every year and stuff like that. And that's crazy. That is nuts. I can see people that will smoke and vacation all of that away in a heartbeat, and that's just a reality that I have to kind of keep in my head when I think about this. Like, maybe it's maybe I think that's one of the few things that keeps me at this point of like, all right, maybe it's not a good idea, because we act a fool when we get money. A lot, like, not all of us, of course, but a lot of us act a fool when we get money. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. What are some ways I could see it? I don't know. Maybe America could set up like a Black fund for Black people. Like for Black people that are registered, and the firm that they can dip into it, they can pull that. They can pull on that for putting down payment on a house, or buying property, or investing or something like that. Something that can be trackable. You know what I mean?
But even if you do those things, you give them the money, they buy the house, they have the means to invest in whatever, right? if they don't have the knowledge, behavior, and skills that are habitual, then they won't be successful even if they get the house. That's why you see the people who become millionaires and they blow the money. So it has to be that found the root, when you get to the root of why they have those behaviors, why they have the lack of knowledge in certain areas. If we don't address that, then no matter how much money you give them, they're still going to screw it up.
And that's the part. And you can't. You're absolutely right. And you can't make somebody learn something that they don't want to learn. You know, you'd have to go through so much to even show them why it's even important to know that information. And then give them the information so that they hold on to it. And then you can give them the funds so that they know what to do with it. Those are crazy large steps.
Yes.
So,
in saying that, to me, what it sounds like, if you do all that, all you're doing is try to deprogram them. Some people are programmed to think that way because that's what they've been doing all the time. That's how they've been living all the time, just like that. So if you take all that time to program them and their mindset back right, then you can't discriminate on them and say, I can't give you nothing because you don't know how to take care of it. Then you be discriminatory. But at the same time, you have to protect the wealth of everybody. So how am I going to, I don't know if I'm going ahead of y'all or not, but this...
You good. Go ahead.
I'm trying to protect the wealth for everybody, but you got this group of people that don't know, they can't function right with money. So if I give them money and give us money, then if we're not rotating the money around, all us gonna lose. You know what I'm saying? So how do you do that? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that you don't deserve no money because you got mental health issues due to whatever the trauma that we had to come up to get to this point. But at the same time, do I give you a proxy to get somebody to help you manage your stuff? But then what's going to happen? We'll be fighting amongst each other. Well, how she got this and you got this? I mean, it's a lot to think about. And honestly, sometimes the enemy would like for you to get it and mess it up. Because guess what? All you're going to do is give it back to him.
And that's another part. Eric, you got something to add?
That's it. I ain't gonna say nothing else. I'm listening to everything somebody got to say. I'm done.
I pretty much was just co-signing with what Chanel and Tanisha was saying. It starts with education. You have to educate the people, and you have to put things in place. It's just like with the Asian culture on the Far East end.
Yeah.
We shouldn't go to that length, but they kind of tell their kids, hey, this is what you're going to go to school for. This is what you're going to go to school for. And that's what you're going to do, because it's about continuing to build the nation, strengthening the nation. Minds have to be changed, and it's not going to happen overnight. It will take decades.
Yeah.
It will take a lot of time, but there may be some people that cannot get any money because you're not ready. Because that would be a waste, and it would not be in the benefit of the nation. That's how you have to think. We have to have, things in place such as, police, to be able to police our own communities. We have to have schools that teach you war tactics. They have them. But I understand a lot of our people, they get caught up in the religious aspects of things. There's nothing wrong with that, because it keeps you grounded, but still you have to understand that you do need that tactic just in case, because no change has ever happened without having bloodshed. None.
True. Some way, shape, or form, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, you have to have these things in place. You have to have people that are willing to learn law, and willing to learn politics and these types of things. I implore people to listen to Dr. Claude Anderson. He speaks a lot about these types of things and what you would need to do in order to build a nation. And he's been saying this for years. People don't want to hear that. They think that you get money and everything is okay and everything will be fine, but it's not. It's like you said, a lot of people get money and they end up dead. And a lot of people around them end up dead because they don't do right with the money. They don't act right with the money. So you have to teach the people. It's going to take a lot of learning, and that's going to take decades to get the people and to get the community out of the mind state that they've been set in order to start to see a little bit of change. And it's sad that a lot of us don't have that will. They don't want to change because they want to remain where they are because it seems easy. But it's not easy. You're a target. You need to change. You need to get up out of where you are, the mind, especially the mind state. You're going to have to change one day. They're cutting us out of a whole lot that we don't even see.
You're absolutely right. You dead on. I put something in the chat just to kind of touch on this other part that is equally as important as to whether or not this whole notion of reparations can even be done. But we also have to speak to the readiness of the community to even receive something like that, and just as critical it is to recognize what was done to us in terms of being denied freedom, being denied identity, being taken, being exploited for labor, being exploited for insight, being exploited for innovation, and all these things. Equally as important, which is what we've been talking about in the last few minutes here, is the effects of what that's done to the community, to the point where we wouldn't even, large and above, we probably wouldn't even do the right thing with it if we had it, which is an argument that a lot of people that I've spoken to actually have. It's like, why would they give us something that we can't even, that we would throw away anyway? And that's part of the screw that we got, that landed, that we've been given, as part of the hand that we've been played. And it's it makes it that much more of an uphill climb, honestly. And Lord, it's a lot. So with that, we can as far as what it would look like, it's a large thing to try and touch on. It's a large thing to try and quantify as far as what it is without going into the readiness behind it. So moving on to the next question there. Two-part question. And we'll cover the first part first. Since we're already kind of doing it right now. What are some of the detriments? What are some of the possible detriments of Black America receiving reparations? What are some of the pitfalls that we can encounter with that, if any? I can already see that there's just off of what we're talking about. There's that notion of, we'd get it just to not keep it in the community. Everybody would just go balling out of control, buying this, that, and the third, and they're done. So, what are some other detriments that you can encounter with that?
Let me put in really quick, because I hear a lot of a majority of us saying that, oh, if we get it, then we're not going to know how to spend it, and we're not going to do it the right way. And that we have to obviously be educated on how to spend it first and all that. But we were educated on it. We have Black Wall Street. We have Seneca Village. So it's not something that we are not aware of. We knew how to do it. Like, and we're not mentioning that we had Seneca Village. Like, we had these things that we built. We had Black Wall Street. We had these things that we built. We had these communities that we had, and they were destroyed. They were taken away from us. So I don't think it's a matter of, yes, it's a matter of education to teach us how, but teach us how to get back to where our mindset was before.
Okay.
Does that, because it's kind of like, oh, we got to learn first, but we did. we were there, and it was stripped away from us.
That's a damn good point.
Right.
I mean, but what you have to understand is you kind of have to look at the history of things around that time. There were more people that were literate during the early 1900s than there are in the early 2000s. So there were more people that were educated around that time. Black Wall Street, there were a few other communities around that time that were flourishing as well, and those types of things happened. But again, what I'm getting at mainly is when you look at that community of Black Wall Street, they had communities where the community there where they had different businesses. Everybody didn't have the same business. Everybody didn't have the same profession.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, is because we have to learn that everybody's not going to be a doctor and a lawyer, and everybody ain't going to go to Harvard.
Right.
That's just how we have to think. And then we have to also understand what going to college is about.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times we think that going to college is just about getting some degree from some fancy school so we can brag about ourselves. But it's actually a higher form of communicating, which is networking. That's what it all comes down to, because you can get the same education from any school. Again, a lot of things that we do it because it feels good. It makes us feel accomplished. But what actually are we accomplishing? If you're not accomplishing anything for your community, you're accomplishing little for yourself. And not taking away from what you said, but you kind of got to look at it from that standpoint. Like when you look at and go through and read about Black Wall Street, they had so many different businesses, and they had their own banks, and they had, all of these different, businesses within that small area. We have to get back to that way of thinking, which means we need that educational background from each of those areas that I named. Because you can't run a community with just a strip club and a liquor store and a hair salon. We have to want to do other things. One thing that I noticed from studying people and especially studying other cultures, you will have people that will study a rock. But if they get funding for studying that rock, they will study that rock and find out what you can use it for till they die, and they will pass that work off. We don't think like that because it's not prestigious for us. We have to do that. We have to think along those lines.
But also, and correct me if I'm wrong, and we had Black Wall Street where there were business owners and stuff like that. But Seneca Village, we were landowners. So we do know how to do that. Like we do know how, and even our families, where we have Browntown Road, where it's 100 acres of people who own land. Like we know how do we get back to that? Like what do we do to get back to that mindset that Jordans aren't the end all, that like land and property and all this is what we need to build. In order for you to build a community back up, you have to start with a foundation. Seneca Village was a foundation. Black Wall Street was a foundation. How do you get there?
You have Can I say something? Okay.
Yo, go ahead.
Okay. What I wanted to say was, you said we did. Yes, that the people before us did. Those people had a whole new different mindset. They came out together facing the same thing. And researching and looking, I'm saying to myself, because my granddad was born in 1889. My great grandma was born in 1867. I'm just 43 years old. And I got grandparents were born in 1800s. Not 1900s, 1800s. So my mom was born in 1934. So I'm like older, I'm real young for my generation, So what I'm saying is that these people, they came out of slavery. They came out of whatever, out of that time where all of them came out at the same time. They had one goal in mind. Everybody had one goal in mind. Today, we have, look at all these generations, people coming with a whole lot of goals in mind. Just because your family has that, they have that goal, they're going to get this and that drive because your family is still that within that family, in that Brown family. You may have a Johnson family, a Green family, a Black family, a white family, whatever their last name is. whatever that family is still with them, that if all us live in the same community, everybody's not going to be on the same page. So I understand what you're saying, how we going to get back, but we have to look at these people came out with a different mindset. These people, they went to college. I mean, they went to Howard. They went to colleges. My great uncle is Benjamin Mays. He was the president of Morehouse College. I'm like, oh my God, that's a lot. But look how long ago that was. Those people had a different mindset because they knew what the struggle was. These kids, I ain't gonna say these kids, but us as young adults and older people and even younger generations, we don't know what no struggle is. So to pull together, my thing is, like you said, I have the same question. How can we pull us back together? We can't say what we did because we ain't did nothing. Mm-hmm. The generations before us did this. We can. You say that to a white person, but you ain't did nothing. Because actually we didn't. I can't take account for what somebody did in 1900. None at all.
Well, when I say we, obviously I mean that our ancestors and what we can take account into what people did, because we're still talking about slavery today. So so when I say we, I mean we as a culture, we as Black people. How do we, as a Black culture, how do we, with your great grandfather being Benjamin Mays and all these wonderful people that are in your lineage, how do we get back to where our ancestors were? How do we get back to them?
That's right. That's my question too. That's my question too.
Right.
Well, pretty much is you have to learn the history of these things.
Right.
And like Tanisha was saying, the mindset was different because if you go back to Seneca Village, I think it was around 1850s. So when you had people that were coming from a culture of togetherness, because on those plantations, that's how they were set up. Mm-hmm. So they only took what they knew and they expanded that to the area that they were in. Mm-hmm. That's how they were able to accomplish that until they were forced off. It's like,
I think
go ahead. Oh, like I was saying,
you got it.
You kind of have to look at the time, and you have to put everything in perspective by looking at the time, and then you'll understand. But that takes learning the history, and a lot of people, that's the number one thing that they don't want to do. They don't want to learn the history, and then they wonder why things continue to be the way that they are, because you're doomed to repeat it if you don't know it.
Yes. And this takes us back to what we were talking about as far as not just having that knowledge, but actually doing something with it. Nini, I think you made a fantastic point of saying that it's not like it's never been established. There's a whole list. It's not even just like Seneca Village or Black Wall Street, Greenwood out there, or Rosewood. You got St. John's Colony, Shankleville. There's stuff there are examples of these places in almost every state east of the Mississippi. So it's not like it's not that it's a thing to. It's not that I don't think it's a thing to just rediscover. I think it is a question of, can we move in that mindset? It's already something established. So is it something that we can get back to? Is it something that we can say?
How do we get back?
And that part of that boils down to how well we know ourselves. If you don't know that you're good at plumbing, you're not gonna go be a plumber.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If somebody doesn't sit down with you and be like, yo, you know how to lay brick, you lay bricks better than anybody else on this block. You should be building this stuff. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And then having that in place, you take the skill that people can figure out, plus the resources to be able to back that up. You'll have your Black Wall Streets again. You'll have your Elk Junctions and Rosewoods and stuff like that. You'll have those again. You'll have the Little Egypts. And these are I'm throwing these names out, but these were names of actual places that we had established, and just like Eric said, that we were able to establish because while we had all these different pages, that people were on, they put all their pages in the same book. As far as saying, okay, well, this is the book of us establishing our village. Your page is doctor. Your page is bricklayer. Your page is seamstress. Your page is, baker. Your page is, funeral director, mortuarian, whatever. And then they all came and they said, this is what we're going to do. And that's how they circulated. They were all good at their professions. So they were all making money, but then they were all giving their money to each other, because if I'm the bricklayer, I'm not going to be trying to bake. I'm going to give my money to the baker because I know he's the best one in the area. And the baker is going to need me to build his oven. And that's how the money circulated back and forth. And what happened was America thought we were going to falter with these things, and they got pissed at how well we were, because we were starting to match their affluent neighborhoods. And they hated that. And that's why when you think of Seneca Village being literally torn down and everybody either being chased off or killed just so New York City can have a Central Park, that still should have been an establishment. When you think of Greenwood out there in Tulsa as being still to this date the only example of the U.S. bombing its own land, because you remember that wasn't just angry white people in the town. The Air Force got involved with that. They bombed themselves. America bombed itself to spite us. That's deep. So it's not just a question of, like we've been saying, it's never just a question of can it be done. It's what do we do with it? What would we do with it if it did? And are we prepared to do what we need to do with it if it were to come? And that's where the big question of this comes into. Do we get that check and do what we need to do with it, or do we throw out the concept altogether because we realize that we're not there? And that's one of those.
And you know what I think is also missing, that we haven't touched base on, is that back then we had leaders. We don't have leaders now. We had leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King. We had leaders like Malcolm X. We had people to kind of guide and
we had Douglas and Washington.
We had people, right? So I think one thing, if anything is missing, is that we don't have that leadership. And how do we get back? How do we get back to that?
What we have to understand is that we have to train people up and make people understand that you can be a leader. You don't have to be a forefront leader. And a lot of times that's how they were able to get rid of a lot of the things that we were creating as far as these movements, because you get rid of one and then the whole falls. So that's how they were able to infiltrate the civil rights movement. They get rid of Malcolm X, they get rid of King, and then what happened? Then you go to blaxploitation, and it goes downhill from there. They know that every 60, 70 years, people are going to start to wake up. So they are waiting for this. They already know this.
I volunteer to leave. I do it.
I was going to say the same thing, because every so often people got to die out for something, for somebody to raise up.
Right.
So
it's true.
Maybe they just wait for some, I ain't gonna say our generation to die off. Lord, I hope we see it. You know what I'm saying? Maybe we be 80, 90, 100 years old to see it, but it may not be right now that we see it. I mean, not to be, biblical or spiritual. Just like when the people were going into the promised land, they had to walk around all the many years. You know what I'm saying? That people had to die off.
Right.
Because they ain't believed. I mean, they ain't believed. They didn't believe. Some that did believe. If they was in that generation, they ain't go either. They had to raise up a new person. Moses didn't go. Aaron took them in there. So it's like, okay, maybe I I don't know.
It's gonna take. It's gonna take that. It's gonna take that to make something happen. And I think there is a portion of us that's actually scared to try and step up and do that. Why? Because America makes a really good example of our leaders, right? If it's not scandal, then it's betrayal on one end or another, or somebody trying to throw a wrench in the programs that we're trying to do, or if none of that works, they'll just kill you.
Mhm.
We have a whole history of that, and it's really it's unfortunate. I think a lot of us are scared to do that. I look at what I do for my own kids, right now and stuff like that. I have my daughter's turning 9 tomorrow. My son turned 7 on the 24th. I didn't get them gifts this year. I started their IRAs. I put $1,000 each into their IRAs, and I'm going to sit with them and explain to them why Dad did this instead of giving me toys. And that's like, that's just me. Can I speak to people and have them look at, have them look at their kids or the people in their lives, or even for themselves, be able to say, instead of doing this, how about this? How about this vehicle that's going to build something? I know it's delayed gratification. I know it may seem like a sacrifice, but it has to be. But we have to start somewhere. So, yeah. When it comes to this thing of reparations, it ain't even just about what we're owed. It's about what we were. It's about what we were always. Up until I think the most recent generations. I think that's what we were always trying to do, and reparations was just one of those things that was going to help us. Do that. Unfortunately, the powers that be don't seem to. They don't want to. They don't want to, for all of the reasons that we've said here tonight. Last part of the question, since we talked about the detriments of it, the other side of that coin. What are the what are the benefits of it? Let's say God forbid everything gets pushed through. They figure out how to give it to us. We figure out a way of of education and so on and so forth. That gets us prepared for being able to have that type of a resource. What are the benefits of having that in place should it happen? That's for anybody.
Seneca Village too.
Yeah, absolutely. How about we resurrect some of these other ones? Like
right.
Is there still a Unionville in Maryland?
Unionville?
Yeah, that's one of the towns. There was a Kinloch in Missouri, and Meacham Park in North Webster. There was a Marshalltown here in Jersey.
Yep, all of those. Black Wall Street again, 2.0.
Okay, I did not know that Sag Harbor in New York had now I know Sag Harbor. I know of Sag Harbor. I did not know that Sag Harbor had an affluent neighborhood like that. I actually have some families who aren't too far away from there. So yeah, can we bring some of these back up? Tatum's in Oklahoma, Free Hill in Tennessee, Barnett Station in Texas. Can we bring that back up? Can we show ourselves and generations going forward what it means to truly be a community and have the means to maintain it and to have it thrive? Jordans ain't gonna do it. Jordans are not gonna do it. Not unless you got Nike stock. And a lot of us, I will say that a lot of us are getting more hip to getting into, like financial vehicles and stuff like that, like 529, fund accounts for their kids' education, or Roth IRAs that have better interest rates than most 401ks.
Mhm.
So it's not that we're not. I don't think that it's not that we're not doing anything. Again, we're starting from way behind the starting line with a lot of
Are
stuff
we though?
because of
Yeah.
what we've been denied. Yes,
Yes, way behind.
I don't think we've caught up yet.
It will be
Not
a
at all.
long time before we can catch up. We're decades behind, if not centuries.
Ugh,
Seriously.
don't say centuries. Ugh.
Yeah. we're still thinking on the 18th century level, it's 19th century level, and we're making good progress, but we still have a long way to go, because oftentimes we find out things on the tail end.
Mm-hmm.
So we gotta also look at that gap.
Mhm.
We so behind. We just got free when President Obama became president.
I can't even count that. I can't even count that. Y'all saw how they held that man hostage in the White House. Obama didn't get to do nothing. not half of it. Not half of everything that he wanted to do. You got to remember, he still had a red Congress behind him.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't let that man do half of nothing. So we ain't free yet. Not even with that. A step forward, yes, but are we out that door yet? Nah, not where we have the highest concentration of our community population still behind bars. No, we don't. No, we ain't there yet. No.
I just think that we could get back to that point, most definitely. But I think, as others have stated, that most of us, even today, we're scared because, going and looking at what happened to those towns, and even most recently back in 1985 with Move in Philadelphia, where that little community.
What was the name of it?
Move.
Hmm.
Happened in 1985 in Philadelphia, where they bombed 2 city blocks
Mhm.
because that they proclaimed that these people were terrorists. So we kind of still remember these things, and we subconsciously keep that with us. So we feel like if a lot of times if we do things like that, then that will be our outcome. So a lot of people are nervous and scared of that as well.
Yeah, there is that danger of people trying to throw shade on you shining and stuff like that. Black people know how to shine better than anybody else I know. But it's in our blood. It's in our damn DNA. But we're in a place, but we're also in an environment that they ain't trying to let it happen if they can't profit off it. They ain't trying to happen. If they don't have a hand in it, or even if they do have a hand in it, they see that it's just moving better than what their expectations of us are. No, it's not even it's not a thing. I think that can be that can go unnoticed, and that they won't try to engineer themselves to it. The show of hands or comment in the chat. Anybody who recent because it's recent. Anybody who checked out Judas and the Black Messiah. I watched that last week, last Monday, and it took me 2 days to kind of like, not to watch it, but it took me 2 days to kind of like sort through how I was feeling about it. Because you got the Black Panthers out there, and you have them. They ain't even asking for no handouts. They're figuring out. We're doing what we can with it, and we're making it work. And it can't be. They literally said it, like they can't get too big. government said they can't get too big. They can't gain enough. They can't gain but so much traction before they start to be a problem for us. And the problem simply being, oh Lord, we're going to have the black community being all self-sufficient and whatnot, and then not subscribing to what we want them to be doing. We don't want them, they're going to rise up. We don't need them rising up. We need them down. We need to keep them down. And that has been the case forever here.
Can I say something? I know this kind of like off a little bit, but That's what I work in healthcare. And I tell people all the time, I say, you know what? If your children are disabled, the government would give you money just so they won't have to help you find something that's going to help your children. I've noticed a lot of Caucasian people, they don't want this money. They don't want disability. They want the treatments or whatever they can to get their children well. But I see a lot of African American people, they will fight you tooth and nail for $554 in disability and take all this medicine and all this other stuff, but they don't care. You see what I'm saying? So like you're saying is, anytime the government want to keep you hush-hush, they'll throw you a nickel. They'll throw you a nickel. And it's like, okay, and that's what came to my mind when you said that. It's because I see that all the time. It's like, instead of us trying to figure out, like Nene said, what can we do to get it together? It's going to be some people in the bunch if they say this, okay, I'm going to run over here and I'm going to get this done, I'm going to do this. Whatever. I think sometimes money drives us, some people, more than the purpose of everybody being free. To me, that seems like that could be one of the issues, because money drives us too much. Sometimes it might not even be worth it.
Yeah, it's it sounds like the incentive to not do as much as you could just to get that little bit. You saying, I'm hearing you saying, they'll toss you a nickel, but they won't tell you that they made $1 off that nickel already. That's why I look at what we do even with sports. I look at how they saw that we were good at sports, and the league got big, and the league, remember the leagues used to be majority white. Half a century later, majority black. And even for the contracts that some of these people are getting, you got to remember that the owners of these teams are making 10 times more than what they're paying the players. It's nothing. You could salary the whole team easily off of the interest that you made off of selling your season tickets, or off of licenses or trade agreements or whatever. So it's not even like, it's still not, even for those of us that are at the upper limits of black earning potential of this, that, and the third.
The camera's on.
They're making tons. They're making buckets of money over the little drop of money that they gave that they gave us. And there is an absolute discrepancy there, and it's been there forever. And every time one of us tries to address that and have it move from just the few of us to it being felt by the community, they don't want the community done. And that's something it's something that I hope comes to an end at some point in time, because we deserve it. Because we deserve it. Easier said than done, as we figured it out here.
Right.
Right. So, my final thought when it comes to this, it's a problem. I will maintain that it is a problem that can be addressed, but the levels that we have to go through in order to address it are, it seems like too many to count. But still possible? Yes. You know, not even for the sake of just seeing everybody, come up in terms of resources, but to ultimately see us come up, period. That's my take on it. What you got, man?
I think that, like, I would love to see reparations happen. Do I think it's gonna happen? Probably not. Do I think we're ready for it? Absolutely not. Because post-slave trauma, what was the PTSD?
Post-traumatic slave
Yep.
syndrome. Yeah.
The fact that for one, what both Tanisha and Eric mentioned, that because we saw what happened to the Black Wall Street and the place in Philly and Seneca Philly, like, we're scared to do that. So subconsciously we're scared to do that. So even if they gave us the money to do that, it's we're not ready for it mentally, because we want to go get the Jordans and get a pink diamond in our forehead and all this other crap that's when the money happens.
No shade to Michael Jordan. No shade to Michael Jordan.
No shade to Michael Jordan, but
okay, do your thing, my dude.
Still take you to the
just
same
understand that people got bad priorities when it comes to your shoes.
But so I think so. My final thoughts are more final questions, and that, will it happen? If it does happen, are we ready for it to happen? If it does happen, how do we prepare the people to accept it, to invest it, and how do we get back? How do we get back to Seneca Village? I just want to get back to Seneca. That's all I want. So what steps need to happen for the reparations to take place, if that ever happens, which it won't? But how do we get back to that Seneca Village, Black Wall Street, and move? Like, how do we get back there? Or what they assume move was, but how do we get back there?
I mean, we said it. It's education, and it's also direction.
But it has to be education on widespread. Like, so,
yes.
It has to be a received education, and the mindset of what those people were when they just came out of that common goal. So of not me and crabs in a barrel, but us as a community, and building a foundation, building a community.
Yeah, I think everybody has to learn. I think everybody has to learn their lane, and then everybody has to, turn their lanes into a highway, so to speak. Like, everybody has to merge their figure out your lane, and then, figure out how to run alongside everybody instead of trying to jump into everybody else's lane. That's one of the issues that we have now, and that's why we can't have nice things.
I just want to back. I'm sorry, Chad. I just want to back up what Nene said. My thing is, I'm piggyback on what she's saying, not taking anything from, but adding to her, is that we can just support each other. My thing is, in order to prepare our generations behind us for what's coming, start at home. It may not happen with my generation, and it may not happen with my children's generation, but one thing I think is important is to teach our households, teach our families what we need to look forward to. We need to teach our families and our households how to be responsible for what's going on, how to take responsibility so we can change. We can't change the whole world, but if I can change what goes on in the inside of my house, when my children go outside these doors, no matter what somebody else do, they know what they was taught at home. So they know what to expect. Everybody may not be doing the same thing, but at least I taught them. Just like during the slavery times, those people sung songs and then they'll be free one day, but they sung the songs. Then their kids sung the songs. Then probably the grandkids heard the song, but now they live in the song. You see what I'm saying? So my thing is, if you have legacies in your family, keep those legacies going. Keep it going. I think we need to teach our families how to do it, one family at a time. Let me teach my family how to do the right thing. So when it does come, we'll be ready. I can't make somebody else ready. Because I don't know the mindset of another person. I can encourage them to be ready, but I know, and I'm responsible for my household. I need to make sure my household is ready. Let my family line be ready. So when it comes, they could be in the right position for anything. We have to be in the right position if we're taught. But we have to teach our households. We have to teach our families. You know, it starts with us first. It starts at home. That's my takeaway from it. And added to Nene.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great addition.
Lakeisha.
Oh, sorry. Hi, guys. I just wanted to piggyback off of what pretty much everybody has been saying. I think it's true what Tanisha is saying, and that, you know, you have to, when you know better, you're supposed to do better. And so when you know better, you pass those things on to your children. And so someone said earlier that, are we going to be able to see, it may have been Tanisha, are we going to be able to see the Seneca Village or the Black Wall Street or the, you know, the Rose, all those types of places? We may not be able to physically live it again. I mean, people that are in our age bracket, but we can set a tone. We can see the makings of that when we teach our children. So my husband and I always talk about how we want our children to do like far better than what we've done for ourselves. And so we're setting a standard now with them. And so that's what we all have to do. Like Tanisha is saying, you pass that on to your children, and your children's children will, you know, hold that torch, and they'll, you know, I've learned things from not necessarily my mother or my father, but my friends' parents, you know. So you can teach your kids things, and it's not like you're just, you know, pouring into your children. You're pouring into, you know, their friends, because they may tell them something important into your community. So we, like I said, we may not necessarily see it ourselves, but, you know, we'll be able to see the makings of that. And we can do anything, you know. We have to sit down. This is a great platform just to begin to talk about the things that we want to see change. That's where it all starts with, right? It's like planting a seed, you know. So if, you know, by chance we are given something, you know, maybe like Tanisha said, we may not be given it. Maybe our children will be given it, but we plant the seed on how you're going to, you know, do better for yourself and for your people and for your community. And I think that Eric touched on it a little bit too when he says, when he said that it's going to take, you can't have something that's been broke for centuries and think like with the snap of a finger it's just going to change. It's going to take time, guys. It takes time, but we can do anything that we put our minds to. We just have to, you know, kind of change our mindset. I think Chanel said a big piece to it, and I'm gonna let you guys go. When she said that we have, and I work for a social service agency. You have community providers in place, but they're band-aiding things because we're kind of just trying to put out the fires, but we're not addressing the issue. So it's like so many things that need to be tackled, and it's just not going to happen all at, you know, one time. But like I said, these conversations and kind of brainstorming, and let's have more conversations like this. Maybe the next one can be, okay, so we talked about reparations and what we would do. Let's start making some plans of what we would want to see done. You know, okay, who knows? Like I think Eric said, everybody has their own skill set. So like Nene and Chad are into coaching, like career coaching, career coaching and life coaching. I asked Nene, and I've been meaning to speak to Tanisha about this. I remember Tanisha saying a couple of weeks ago that she was giving her this skill set that she had out for free. She was just giving it away. And then she finally made a decision that she wanted to do something for herself. I think that sometimes a lot of people have a desire, and they have, you know, they want to do things, but they don't know who to go to. They don't know who to talk to. So being open to share that I know how to start my own business. Lakeisha's thinking about doing something. She may have a plan, but she doesn't know how to execute it. Don't be scared and holding back on what you know. Share those things with your, it doesn't have to be a relative. Share those things with your fellow sister and brother. I think that, and I'm not one to bash my people. I mean, reality is reality, but it's something in me that I can't do it. And my thing is that I feel like a lot of times other races and ethnicities, they help one another. They're not like crabs in the barrel. And I'm not saying that all Black people are like crabs in the barrel, but we kind of don't like support one another. It's always, not always. Sometimes it's us, a lot of times, yes, it's not always. A lot of times it's us pointing the finger. She thinks she can do this. We have to be able to, support one another. Like Tanisha said, the mindset is a little bit different, but it's a lot more than I think that we're giving each other credit for tonight, that want to see better and want to do better. So.
Right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That patience and perseverance in the chat. That's right. It really isn't anything else that needs to be after that. Patience and perseverance, and doing what needs to be done for as long as it needs to be done until the change happens. That's riveting discussion, y'all. I knew we was gonna come through with. I knew y'all was gonna come through it. Y'all ain't let me down. Like I said last week, y'all came with it. Y'all, I'm so proud of y'all. Anyway, y'all are a fantastic bunch. Absolutely. I was trying to figure out a name for y'all. I didn't want to say like space cadets or space cases or anything like that. That's up. But y'all are my space aces. Y'all are my space aces, and I appreciate y'all very, very much for that. That'll pretty much wrap it up for us tonight. Appreciate y'all coming through and everything. Since this is going to be now shareable content, we will let you guys know when it's available. Y'all check it out on the YouTube channel that we have, Him and Her Spaces. Like, share, comment. Of course, that is also where we will have our Your Space reaction videos, and we are setting up for, as we've been letting you guys know, we are setting up for our first masterclass, which will be this month.
Yes.
So that'll be the Him and Her Soul Space, and we got a panel together for y'all. We have a panel for that. That subject is going to be mental health in the Black community, and it won't even just be us. We have some people that are also mental health specialists that we will be in conversation with for a good hour. So that we'll make sure that we let you guys know when that's ready to go, and that's all on the YouTube channel. So these new your TalkSpace videos that we have here, we have this recorded. This will be on there. The Your Space videos will be there. The Soul Space videos will be there. So y'all let people know we are growing. Let people know we're growing, and we're only doing it with you guys' help. So much appreciated for that.
Yes.
I just put it in the chat space. The email address for you guys to send any show ideas, of course. Any videos that you guys want us to touch on, any ideas for future shows, any articles, any videos, any if you see any other content creators that you'd like for us to watch and address on, stuff like that, bring it all to us. Okay. That'll pretty much be it. I always ask you, did I get everything?
You did. Yes. I don't think we missed anything.
All right.
Except for next week's topic. But that's it.
Oh, shoot. You're right. All right. So next week, I never have it up. I had it up. I do have it up.
I have it, I think.
I do. I have it up. It's okay. Oh, sure. Okay. So next week, kind of still touching on. We've been kind of like on this train of thought with the Black community's relation with certain aspects of American culture and American interaction. So next week, the relationship of Black America and U.S. healthcare and medicine. I know some of us are actually in the healthcare profession, so looking forward to definitely hearing you guys chime in on what you see and what you've experienced, in your day, even in your day to day. So you guys let your healthcare people know. that they are definitely welcome, especially for next week.
Yes.
The relationship between Black America and U.S. healthcare and medicine,
Yeah.
especially with what's happening with us, right now. And I want to hear all of it. I want to hear all of y'all takes on the history of it, y'all takes on this vaccine, y'all takes on this pandemic, and how healthcare treats us or doesn't treat us. Bring all of that. Bring absolutely all of that. We have the space for it. And I'll see you guys there.
You're corny.
That's it. I'm gonna do. Well, I gotta do it. I gotta. Anyways, from both Nene and myself, you guys have a fantastic night.
Yes,
thank you for being a part of it as always. We appreciate you guys so much.
Absolutely.
Spread the word, of course. Share the link. Let them know we'll be here this week and every week. All right. So y'all know what's coming. From both of us here at your space, Soul Space and TalkSpace, where we have, as always, 2 coaches,
1 space, 0 reservation.
0 reservations.
Yay.
You guys have a great night. We will see you later.
Bye, guys. Love you.
Appreciate it, Lakeisha. Thank you, Eric. Thank you,
Yes.
Lindsay.
Thank you, everyone. Yay.
All right.